Hey, Cologne, looks like they have a new running back. Barcelona wins a close game against Hamburg. And are the Ryan Fire the best team in the league? Week two. Let's talk about it.
We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. His street, what to talk about. See the big.
Hey, before we get this thing started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, drop a comment. Let's talk about it, see how things are going. Welcome to another episode of Base Coverage, everyone. I'm your host, Jamal Clay. Base Coverage is presented to you by Knoah Teamwear. You know, we wrap up another week in the ELF. A lot of crazy things have happened. I thought I was going to have a lot of questions answered, but turns out I'm leaving with more questions and curious about more matchups to come in the future. You know, we'll talk about some of the games a little bit, but before we do that, let's dive into the picks. Now, this past week, I went up against my man Vincent Perfect Purvis from American Football in Finland. And as you can see here, looking at our pick situation, it turns out that I had a rough week with picks, going 2-4, and you know he went 3-3, and we had a lot of similar picks. Looks like for us, it really came down to the Kings and the Fire game. So because of that, unfortunately, there's not going to be any Knoah swag on after sweep. But you know, I'll make sure next week, you know, I'll do a better job and see if we get two out. So again, I want to get free gear out, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that I represent Athletes Farm in the pick segment. So let's dive into some games. First game that we're going to talk about: the Raiders and the Centurions. Another crazy battle, another high scoring game for the Centurions. Going into this matchup, one of the things that I was skeptical about was the Raiders secondary, or the Raiders pass defense versus the Centurions passing offense, and it turned out that played dividends in this game. Another high scoring game. I know a lot of penalties, you know, cost the Raiders some opportunities. Ultimately, Cologne did pull it out for another week, now making that 2 weeks, winning by a total of 5 points between those two games. One thing that worries me about the Centurions is that, yes, the defense is better. Regardless of the score, the defense is much better than last year. If they could play better down the stretch, this could be a dangerous team because the offense could put up points. So that's one thing to keep an eye on. Shout out to Jan Vainreich and Sean Shelton for the QB battle that they gave us this weekend. It was definitely something that had a lot of fans intrigued. So curious to see how these teams move forward going next week. Here we go. The Istanbul Rams and the Berlin Thunder. Now, before we even dive into this game, the all-black unis, though, tough for the Thunder. And the entrance, they might have the best entrance in the ELF with that little walk-in coming between the stands. So they to start the game, they started out on the right foot. It looks like in this game, the offense was a little bit more in sync. They fed Jock, and Jock got off. I think he, you know, 3 touchdowns, 122, 123 yards against that Rams defense. So kudos to them. And, you know, like I said, definitely looked like they were more in sync. The Rams struggled. The Rams struggled against the Berlin defense. And in one particular area was on third down. Their third down package was brutal. Was brutal against the Berlin defense. And they really couldn't get anything going. I think throughout the game, or total throughout the game, they were 3 for 15 on third down. They didn't have a way to block the scheme that the D-line was giving them up front, causing a lot of confusion. I know Tyrese Johnson-Fisher really couldn't get going in the run game, and Jalen didn't have his best game as well. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how his team bounced back. I do think the Rams are better than what they presented. I think they're more of a week 1 team that we saw than they are week 2. But it just depends how they bounce back going forward. So that's something to keep an eye on. Shout out to the Thunder. They look like a much better, improved team. So we'll see what happens going into week 3 of the ELF when they have their prospective matches coming up. My favorite game of the week to watch this week was the Barcelona Dragons versus the Hamburg Sea Devils. Now, you know, Barcelona got off to a fast start. I believe it was 14-7 towards the end of the before the Sea Devils tied it up, 14-14 going into halftime. But it was a real good game to watch. Barcelona's just different this year. I mean, you can see, you know, them bringing a lot of the same guys back, you know, the camaraderie and the chemistry that they have on the team. And this is without their defensive corner, Sean Wilson, even playing. This Dragons team is for real. I think it's something that they're putting a lot of the league on notice. But how about that South Conference? With the Fire, the Dragons, and the Centurions all at 2-0. They may get two teams in the playoffs coming out that conference. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And, they're legit teams. But I think ultimately, as I mentioned before, if this was going to get into a high-scoring game, I was curious how the Hamburg Sea Devils passing game was gonna be able to hold up. And they held up pretty well. I think a couple turnovers towards the end. Unfortunately, they lost out some opportunities, hence, the score being what it was, 24-21. But this was a good game to watch, and this was a good win for the Dragons. This is a good quality win. Last week against the Surge, seeing how that game played out, you really didn't know, how good the Dragons were. But, kudos to them. This is a good win versus a team that went to the championship last year. So they're going to be fun to watch. So definitely a team to keep an eye on. Heading down the road into the season. The Galaxy versus Vikings. Hey, Vikings pulled out another one, and this was a good defensive effort on their part. Offense was good a little bit. I still think they need some time to gel, get into more of a rhythm. But, the Vikings, their defense showed up today against the defending champs. Obviously, Jacob Sullivan didn't play this weekend, which made it a little unfortunate. I think it would have been a better matchup seeing Jacob going against Jackson Erdman. But needless to say, they still had some plays out there. I think Nico Strawman had a pretty good game. And it's interesting to see what the Galaxy do from here because, them and the Raiders are kind of in the same boat where it's like, who's gonna play catch up to the Vikings first. So we're gonna see what Frankfurt could do going forward. But ultimately, the Vikings proved their dominance, finishing off the second week 2-0 with another impressive performance. And again, we just gotta keep an eye and see what Frankfurt is all about going forward. Panthers versus the Surge. Hey, kudos to the Surge. They played a lot better this week. They proved that last week was an anomaly and that, if they could be more like this team week 2 versus the week 1 Surge team, they could make things interesting. They gave the Russell Panthers a run for their money. Shout out to Darius Robinson with the punt return for a touchdown. I think it's the first one on the season, showing that he's dangerous in the special teams as well as he is as a corner. The Surge, they show what that offense could be like once they get going. I know Randy was slinging the ball deep, and he had a lot of connections. Connecting on a lot of deep balls, some for scores throughout the game, and maybe that's going to be their offense going forward. And if it is, I think that's something that they can build on. This is definitely a stepping stone in the right direction for the Surge team. Unfortunately, a busted coverage caused them an opportunity to maybe get a win in this game. And that just comes with, maturity and, like we mentioned before, they are a young team, and it's going to be interesting to see how they keep developing, especially going into week 3. But again, kudos to the Surge. Congrats to the Panthers on the win. Another quality game that wasn't a pushover that some people may have thought was going to be in week 2. The Fire and the Kings. Hey, going into this matchup, I thought it was going to be all about the trenches. Obviously what the Ryan Fire showed that we're going against Frankfurt, and then who the Leipzig Kings defense, who they are in terms of personnel. But man, the wide receivers showed out. Nathaniel Robitaille is a big play waiting to happen. Him and Matt Adams, they have a connection that they're going to build on, and he's such a reliable target down the field. And if you forget, if you try to double him, then you got Timothy Knutle that you have to worry about too. So the Fire got some weapons. And like I said, in the South Conference where you got, the Dragons, the Centurions, the Fire got to make things interesting. And like I said, there could possibly be 2 teams coming out that conference if, they keep this up going forward. Shantavius Jones, welcome back to the ELF. Him and Jordan Barlow had a good connection throughout the game. Jordan Barlow also connected to Dable Wolf on a couple passes. And it's going to be interesting in what Leipzig does from here, because they are 0-2, team that could easily be, 1-1 or 2-0. But, where do they take the next step going forward? This game was a lot closer than what I expected. I think turnovers got the best of the Kings in this one. So, definitely some opportunity to clean up, but we'll see what happens going forward with the Kings. Well, that's all we have today, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. Tune in this Friday as we have our pregame show, week number 3, and we talk about some matchups. And who's going to be our guest picker? I don't know, but all I know is that, Athletes Forum, we're going to get back on the map. And, instead of 1, maybe we'll give out 2 Knoah Teamwear, some streetwear for you guys, all right? So, again, thank you for tuning in. And like I said, or like I always say, this won't be the last time we chop it up.
Hard work, they don't know about it. Hard work, they don't know about it. Hard work, they don't know about it. Who going hard?